right, hi everybody. Good Wednesday. Welcome into the Hometown Sports Huddle here on WDBJ7 Plus. I'm Dave Walls, joined in studio by a special guest. We had talked about him last week. We showed you some of his very fast highlights on the show. Matt Hagan, Christiansburg native, who is a NHRA four-time world champion, and pleasure to have you in studio. You know, as I was mentioning to you off air, I am someone who I will never try to pump up my own stats. I know very little, but whenever I see it, whenever I get a chance to go to a strip and see some racing, I am enthralled by it. So I'm happy that you're here because I want you to teach me. I want you to tell me all about it.
Dave, first off, thanks for having us in the huddle this weekend or this week. You know, we're gearing up for the Charlotte 4-Wide Nationals. It's an unbelievable event. I mean, it's sensory overload. Every ticket's a pit pass out there. Your GA ticket gets you in there in the pits, watching the mechanics work, getting autographs from the drivers, all the major things that you would usually have to have hot pass to do, or kind of know somebody, or you know, kind of one of those things where you'd to get behind the scenes, your GA ticket gets you in there, you know. So super cool event. Obviously sensory overload, 12,000 horsepower for each car, 80,000 foot-pounds of torque for each car. You know, so put this in perspective, Dave. Basically, for 4 of those cars, it's more horsepower than an entire NASCAR field. So if you've ever been to a NASCAR race and you thought that was a lot of power, watching 4 of these cars go down the drag strip at 340 miles an hour in under 4 seconds is pretty amazing. Don't blink, but definitely bring your earplugs.
Yeah, definitely don't blink. You know, it's funny. We some of the other people in the news, I was showing them the highlights of your win at Pomona. We'll show that in a moment, where you went over 330 miles an hour, and someone made the question is, are you actually racing, or are you more hanging on? But there is a skill to it. I mean, a lot of the work takes place well before you even get to the starting line.
Well, you know, obviously I've been very, very blessed to have a crew now for 20 years going. You know, some of these guys have been with me for 15 years, kind of unheard of. And I think that's why we're, you know, 4-time champion, won 56 races, and set a bunch of national records along the way. You know, people are everything, and we got a good group of people and a good group of guys that are working hard behind the scenes. But yeah, there is somewhat of a skill set. I mean, these cars are short wheelbase, you know, 12,000 horsepower. They're all over the place. You're really being aggressive in there driving these cars, and it's kind of wild that your mind slows it down for you, and at 340 miles an hour in under 4 seconds, you know, to go 1,000 feet. You know, people don't realize is that you can go out to the salt flat and run 500 miles an hour over a couple miles, but we do it in 1,000 feet, and that's really kind of what makes your mind go, whoa, you know. And so when that happens, we pull close to 6 G's on a run and almost -7 G's when the parachutes come out. So I look really young for a while, and then I look really old when the parachutes come out. So I'm trying to get that old part not to stick as much, you know.
That's I can't imagine going through that kind of transition so quickly, you know, from, you know, like you said, the change in G's.
Yeah, you know, it's just being like shot out of a rocket, you know, and yeah, you are holding on a lot of times, and it's just, you know, things are happening. But, you know, another thing is these cars do explode a lot. You know, we blew up 6 times last year. So there's a great highlight reel on Matt Hagan YouTube explosions, you know, and unfortunately I've made Sports Center crossing the finish line on fire and everything else. So, you know, we're definitely not proud of it when it happens like that, because it's usually about $250,000 when these things go boom. But that's part of the game. I mean, I think the fans were there to put on a show. And one thing that I realized over the years of doing this for 20 years, people save up all year long to come out and spend the weekend with us. And, you know, we have to put on a show for them. So whether it's running through there on fire, or going 340 miles an hour, or just being loud and shaking the ground, some seismologists came out, and it's a 2.3 on a Richter scale.
Wow.
So it's a small earthquake. When 2 of these cars leave the starting line, you're going to have 4 of them in Charlotte.
Wow, that's amazing. This is April 24th to the 26th down in Charlotte, the NHRA 4-Wide Nationals. I want to make sure I get that out. We'll have, of course, more information on the website later on this evening. But you've been, you know, first of all, coming up from Christiansburg, let's talk a little bit about just how you got involved in the sport in the first place, coming from this region.
You know, as a young kid, I went to Bristol Dragway. I was 11 years old, and the top fuelers cut loose, and I could not believe. I was like, what is that? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then obviously just started racing locally as a young kid. which was really cool about drag racing is you can race anything. I started off on a four-wheeler, and started doing that and went to a final. Didn't win the final, but I won $130 when I was like 13 years old, and I was hooked from there. I was like, oh man. My dad has a car lot, Sheeler Motor Mile down the road, and grew up, obviously around cars and around racetracks and different things like that. Well, I started stealing the cars off of his used car lot, and I'd bring them back with no transmissions and tires balled and everything else. And
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah. And I was kind of like, hey, I don't know, Dad, and he was like, no, I got to sell these things, know. So I'm sorry back in the day if you got a car that the transmission was kind of wore out of it. But no, really, in all seriousness, we got a little local race car and started racing. Local sponsors, got introduced to them, and then into the corporate America. And man, one thing led to another, and here I am, and never would have dreamed of this being my career. 20 years in and have 4 championships and battling it out every year to win another one.
Yeah, and you've been a part of some history along the way. You were the first one, I believe, to break the 300-mile-per-hour barrier, and now here you are regularly doing over 330. I saw over at Pomona.
Yeah, and also at Charlotte, we were able to break the 3.9-second barrier and a 3.8-second barrier, and I missed the 3.7-second barrier by one run. Ran it right behind Robert. So definitely have a lot of accolades, a lot of cool things that we've done in the deal. We just won the 1,000th drag race in Pomona last weekend. Winning that race, winning the Mission Too Fast, Too Tasty challenge as well. We took everything there. My teammate, Tony Stewart, which is my team owner, and also drives the top fuel car as well with my my other teammate, Leah Pruitt, his wife. We won it all, man. Like, the only thing we left there in Pomona, California was the change under the bleachers.
What's it like working, with Tony? Because, for those of us who covered him in his NASCAR days, we all know Tony can, sometimes be in a good mood, sometimes in an intense mood.
Everybody thinks he's a hothead, but man, he's been cool, calm, and collective with me. Just a great guy. Honestly, I consider him a friend more than I do a boss. Just has been great. I've been working for him for 5 years now, so you really get to see the ins and outs and the good and the bad side of people. And Tony's been nothing but great. And I think that for me, I didn't really follow NASCAR that much, so I was like, I better look up and see what this guy's really done.
Right.
And man, I pulled up his accolades, and it just kept going,
Yeah.
So definitely a guy, when you start to drive for him, you said, man, we need to impress this guy. You know what I mean? He's a wheelman. He can drive anything.
Oh, yeah.
He's done great in the sport, and he just fell in love with drag racing. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, he's done really well in the NASCAR side of things. Owned teams, won a lot of races, 3 Cup races, different things like that. But just left there with a bad taste in his mouth, I think, and came over here to NHRA and drag racing, met his wife over here, and has just genuinely loved it. And out of all the things that he's done and all the things that he's driven along the way, I feel like this is it for him, man. And he's just on top of cloud 9. You know what I mean?
He's really made the transition in 2 totally different forms of racing too. I think that's the most impressive part.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where just to watch him grow and do something new is pretty cool. So I'm excited every weekend to show up, and you never know what Tony and Leah are going to do, but I'm along for the ride. We've got great sponsors with Dodge and American Rebel Beer, and Jason Johnson with Horsepower Garage, and I got sponsors that I can just hang out and be myself with,
Right.
And that's hard to do it today in corporate America, So we Dodge has been a supporter of mine for 19 years, and they give me a Hellcat Durango. We drove out here to the studio this weekend, and
nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You know what I mean? It's a fast grocery getter, put it that way.
It may not have the capacity for the groceries, but hey, you're not complaining about the ride. On the screen, I want to show the highlights. This was the 1,000th NHRA funny car race in the organization's history, and you were in the finals here with Ron Cap. It's going to be up on the monitor here. Walk me through this one a little bit. You're on the bottom of the screen.
Man, obviously right here we're running.
And this one's going down to the wire. Finish line, it's going to be Matt Hagan. What a win, what a weekend for Tony Stewart and team. 387.6, 330 miles an hour. Hagan beats the 389 of Ron Cap. This guy can't do anything but win around here.
To win these races.
Matt Hagan has to crack that head in just right. He gets his first victory of the season in the 1,000th funny car race against Ron Capps, a guy you have a ton of respect for. Not only was it a win for you, but a win for your team owner, Tony Stewart, who got his victory today. Matt, what are the emotions you're feeling right now?
It's unbelievable. I mean, like I said earlier, Christ is king, baby, and everything good happens through God. And it's one of those things where I can't believe it, man. We get this
It's massive. You know,
funny car
the
trophy.
first one was won by Jim Dunn. The second one was won by the Snake.
My
and
boss
the third
won the race. We won the race.
500th was won
man,
by
we won it too fast, too tasty.
John Force, and
everything is just amazing.
So
I lost my aunt this weekend.
You line yourself up there with some pretty big names
to cancer,
that have pulled down some pretty big races. And by the time 2000 rolls around, I'll be dusting a win, man.
I don't know. You get some racers who go a long way. You mentioned like the Force family. They've been along for the ride for a long time.
They've done a lot for drag racing. John Force is a living legend, and we love that he's still around. We hate that he crashed out there in Richmond and wasn't able to race anymore. But at the end of the day, he's still getting on a plane, coming out there and supporting drag racing and supporting his family and doing what he does. And we're glad to have him in the sports still.
That's fantastic. Now let's go back to what we got coming up at the 4 Wide Nationals. Walk me. You mentioned a lot of the talk about the speed and the things like that for a racer. How many times are you on the track? What's the format of this event? How a fan looking to come out for the first time?
So the 4 Wide will have one less round. We'll have 3 rounds on Sunday for racing because it is 4 Wide, and we'll finish 1, 2, 3, 4. However, you cross the finish line there on Sunday. Mm-hmm. But all in all, we'll still have two rounds on Friday, 2 rounds on Saturday, and then 3 rounds on Sunday to finish this thing up. It is a fast, chaotic event. But it's fan friendly too. I think it's important to note that you can bring your kids. You know what I mean? I know it's loud and I know it's fast and there's a lot going on and people everywhere, but it is definitely a family event. So we get a lot of moms that come out. You'd be surprised. And they're pushing the strollers around and all this stuff, and it's just an event. So if you're in the area, I promise you this: it will be money well spent.
Yeah, I know a lot of folks from our area go down to Charlotte and see the races in Bristol and things like that. So they'll be going. And like you said, it is a family. As I mentioned, I've been trying to get out and experience more of it, and I am impressed by the number of moms and kids who are out there, not only with the fathers and sons. It's a really inviting atmosphere, especially for newbies, which I appreciate.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's something out there for everyone. I mean, even if you're not following the drivers and you're a gearhead and you want to watch these guys tear the car apart and put it back together, I mean, we'll make 30-minute turns as far as tearing the car apart, putting all new rods and pistons and heads and manifolds and different things like that in it, and go back up there, sometimes live TV under 30 minutes. I mean, you can't get your oil changed somewhere in 30 minutes, and these guys are rebuilding a race car, so pretty cool to see a lot of air guns going off, a lot of stuff happening.
One of my last questions for you is just what's next for you, because you've been in this game for a long time. What do you see the next evolution of this sport becoming for you and for the
obviously I signed a multi-year contract with TSR, so we're going to be doing this for a few more years the way it is, but I farm at home as well. We got several businesses there that I'm running, and it's something that I think for me, farming slows everything down, and you're just able to turn the world off and throw your phone in the truck and get on a tractor and slow down a little bit, and then we get out here and have a little bit more adrenaline filled and things that are chaotic and dealing with fans and TV and sponsors and everything like that. So it's a real happy medium. So I'll be doing the farming stuff until I'm not physically able to, but the racing will definitely have its day in the sun, and it'll be over one day, but we're just taking it all in and enjoying it while we can.
And then we were talking before we came on about the evolution at the local level, because we're seeing some tracks starting to get it back a little bit. I know earlier we talked to Stacey Compton, who said they're getting their drag facility back up. And are you seeing that more on a national stage, people trying to get it back up and going a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think with anything, racetracks are really hard to make money. There's you talk to Tony, he owns Eldora, and it's always they have $1 million race there every year and different things like that. But it just takes a lot of support from the local families and friends and people to keep these local tracks running. So I think that a lot of times if you do have the opportunity, go support your local track and go show them that you do care and that you do support what they're doing and keeping it going, because that's what it takes to keep these local tracks going. If you guys love racing at these local tracks, you got to go out there and sit in the stands every now and then too.
Well, hopefully we're going to be in the stands for the NHRA 4 Wide Nationals, 24th to 26th, and it's great to see you back in the region. It's a pleasure to meet you, because everybody's been talking to me about, you got to see this race. People in Charlotte have been calling me, so you got to talk to Matt. You got to see what's going on. And we've seen that clip of the Pomona race maybe like 100 times, and I've been showing it to people around here, and their eyes go out of their skull watching that.
Well, Dave, we appreciate you having us in the huddle today, and hopefully we'll see you out there at the racetrack, and if not, hopefully in the future.
Yeah, you definitely will, and come back anytime. We'd love to see you.
Sounds great.
All right, we'll be right back on this Hometown Sports Huddle with more right after this. All right, welcome back to the Hometown Sports Huddle, everybody. Dave Walls here as we want to thank again Matt Hagan for a tremendous interview. I know we had a little bit of audio issues in the middle here. You know, Matt is somebody who is used to the loud noise of a funny car drag racing at 330 miles per hour. Fortunately, the video was not. So I know you missed a little bit there of him talking about just what it's like to go through that. You know, he was talking about some of the races, that he had out in Sonoma. He was beating guys by 4 1,000th of a second, or as he liked to say, by a frog's hair. And, but again, he's been doing it for a long time. Four-time world champion, I should say. And again, been doing it for a long time and doing a great job as well. So we want to thank him for coming in. Again, that's the NHRA racing, the 24th and 26th, this upcoming weekend down in Charlotte. We hope you can make it out there. Again, we'll have more information on WDBJ7.com later on after the show tonight, so you can go there and get that information. All right, a couple things we are watching for tonight. Well, first of all, let's talk about what else happened today. Unfortunately, it was 11 a.m. Baseball day for both the Salem Ridgejacks and the Hill City Howlers. Both of them lost. 11 a.m. is because, well, it's called Education Day. It's something they do in minor league baseball, where they have lots of school children in the area who get to come out, enjoy a day at the park, and it's great. Of course, if you're a media member and you get to go, we're not exactly creatures of the morning. Let's put it that way. We're ready for the night games. And sometimes the players can show a little bit of that rust as well. But Salem goes extra innings today. They fall 7-6, but fear not. Fear not, the Ridgejacks will be back tomorrow, and we will have it for you live on WZBJ 24 as they, again, take on Fredericksburg, and they'll be back at a normal start time tomorrow, 6:30 p.m., a part of a huge slate we're doing all this season with the Salem Ridgejacks. You can see other games we've got coming up when they've got feature series against Delmarva and Hickory. We are your home for Salem Ridgejacks baseball, WZBJ 24. Just search for the Salem Ridgejacks at WDBJ7.com, and you'll see a listing of the slate of games we have there for you. All right, other things to watch out for. The Roanoke Rail Yard Dogs are back. Yes, this is Game 3 of the semifinals tonight against Evansville. These are highlights from Birmingham, but they are tied up 1 apiece with the defending champs from Evansville after a big Game 2 win on Saturday night. And again, one of the things we talked about, here comes Don Marcinkevich, again, deking the guy right out of his skates and then finishing it. But the big problem through 2 games has again been the fact that Evansville scored multiple goals in the third period of both games. It sunk Roanoke in Game 1. They're able to come back from it in Game 2. Clearly an area that is a focus, and clearly an area where, there's, some concerns around the board, not only defensively, but in net. Austin Rodebush was pulled in Game 2 late. Gabe Rosek comes on and is able to lock it down from there, but certainly there's some question marks about who's going to be in the net tonight for the Rail Yard Dogs. You would think Rodebush would be back out, but after his Game 2 struggles, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, that tip ball, for puck drop, I should say, wrong sport. The puck drop's going to be around 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock out in Evansville. However, we do have a sister station out there in Evansville who is covering the game for us. We will have some highlights of that game coming up tonight for you on WDBJ at 11. All right, about to wrap things up here again tonight, but again, we have Roanoke Rail Yard Dogs. Matt Hagan is going to be out in Charlotte this week. I do want to thank him for his time. I'm taking the next 2 days off. Mitch Carr and Austin Hicks will be in studio here tomorrow. NFL Draft. We got to talk about who's going where in the NFL Draft. I think we basically know who's going number 1 unless the Raiders decide to be the Raiders and go off the board from Fernando Mendoza. You never really know, especially I know Al Davis is long since gone, but I'm sorry. I still don't trust the Raiders to ever make the logical choice. And if you're a Raiders fan, I'm sorry, but you kind of know what I'm talking about here. I think if Al were still here and the next generation of Darius Hayward Bay were around, I think he would somehow find his way into the silver and black. So I know I was talking with Mitch and with Austin. They're definitely paying attention to the draft and see if any local players will hear their name called over the next couple days of the draft. And we'll, of course, have more for you that tomorrow here on the Hometown Sports Huddle. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'm Dave Walls. Again, thanks so much for watching, and we will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.